Are you kidding me?
5 down to 7. Barrett outside the switch. Doncic goes, oh, what a quick step! And then he hammers it home. Broke his ankles. And he bounces.
So what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. I hope all is well, and I'm pretty frustrated right now as a New York Knicks fan because this isn't fake. This is coming out by SNY TV. Ian Begley, the best New York Knicks beat reporter out there, gives us reliable content when it comes to New York Knicks, trades, what's gonna happen, updates on this whole Donovan Mitchell situation that's been going on for so long now. But here we go. Some Knicks decision makers are now open to including RJ Barrett in a trade for Donovan Mitchell. Some, keyword some. Some of them need to be fired then, in my opinion, because they do not know the history of the New York Knicks. They do not know the history of the NBA. To me, that would just be extremely dysfunctional if we go on to do that, because then we're going to be stuck in mediocrity. We're not going to build a longevity, consistent winner, because at least that's what I thought Leon Rose's mindset would be when it's become him becoming the president of basketball operation for the New York Knicks, to win now but also compete for the future, because that's what the best organizations do, especially when you take a look at the Golden State Warriors. They even have young assets for the future after coming off of winning an NBA championship. I'm not going to say we're going to be as successful as them, but our blueprint should definitely be like that. Same thing with the Toronto Raptors. They won an NBA championship with Kawhi Leonard, but they're still very competitive. They have young pieces. They draft well. They ended up with Scotty Barnes. They're very loyal to their players. You got to respect organizations like that. You shouldn't respect organizations that go on to give up their young core for one player just to improve one round. And that's what it looks like some of these people in the Knicks organization want to do. Obi Toppin, Emmanuel quickly, maybe though that's not the worst in the world, but when it comes to I think they could be very valuable players when it comes to the bench. Not for this team. I don't see them starting, because Jalen Brunson and then Julius Randle, if we go on a trade for Mitchell, Randle would still be here unless Randle has a pretty good year, and then the Knicks want to try to get some good value out of him. Then they will go on to trade him, and then Obi gets some opportunity if he ends up flourishing in a bigger role. We'll see what goes on to happen with that whole situation. But RJ Barrett's a whole different story right here. RJ Barrett's someone we took third overall back in the 2019 NBA draft, was a beast out of Duke. Obviously, he's one of the top players coming out of high school. But putting that aside here, he's 22 years old. He came off of averaging 20 points per game. His efficiency needs to get better. I do understand that. He needs to build a bigger bag. But the whole point of trading for Donovan Mitchell is to have a higher ceiling. Not just be good this year, but be good in the future, because Donovan Mitchell's still relatively young. RJ Barrett's still young. He's continuing to get better. Not like Donovan Mitchell has 1 year left on his contract. He has several years or a few years left on his contract, which gives us some flexibility. So if we do go on to trade for Donovan Mitchell, and let's say RJ Barrett doesn't pop off next year, or even the year after that, even if we go on to extend him, and the Knicks are like, RJ Barrett's not living up to our expectations, then you could trade him. But to see RJ Barrett after 3 years and you're like, you know what, we're done. We think he's kind of at his ceiling and it's worth it trading him for a Donovan Mitchell or something like that, that's just we're just going to be stuck in mediocrity forever if we go on to do that, because we're going to be trading draft capital as well. We're probably going to be trading less draft capital, but because we're going to be giving up less, because they'll probably value RJ Barrett a lot more than a Quentin Grimes or an Obi Toppin or something like that. So and Donovan Mitchell would kind of be stuck in the same situation, because Rudy Gobert, he's a totally different player, but he's better than Julius Randle. He knows his limitations. We know he's not crazy offensively. Julius Randle's a talented player, but he doesn't have the highest of basketball IQ. Jalen Brunson, I like him, but he still needs to prove himself as a consistent starter in this league. He hasn't been a starter his entire career, coming out of Villanova, being drafted by the Dallas Mavericks. So he played with 2 All-Stars over there. And if RJ Barrett's gone, if we trade RJ Barrett, our ceiling goes lower, because we know what Randle is. I don't think he's getting better. Maybe his basketball IQ gets a little better. I think Brunson can get better, but how much better? So what would we end up, just the second round? I feel like the team will expect we'll just expect what's going to happen. I don't know if that really made sense coming out of my mouth. I'm all over the place right now, but we would be giving up RJ, we'd be giving up draft picks just to improve one round. I think that would just be not a good look for the New York Knicks. I know us fans will be pissed off, at least in my opinion, and across the NBA, it would just look nasty. And you look at RJ Barrett's career, his rookie year, we're kind of going to scratch that, because people have struggles your rookie year. I know his efficiency wasn't the best, but you went into a mess of a situation as anyone drafted third overall will, unless there's tons of injuries. The Darko Milicic situation was totally different. I know he was selected second overall, but there was injuries, the whole suspension thing that went on to happen. But David Fizdale, a mess. Julius Randle, a mess. Second year, Julius Randle pops off, surprises everyone, and then Julius Randle thrives with the ball in his hands a lot. And RJ Barrett's someone that needs the ball in his hands or likes to have the ball in his hands a lot. They force RJ to play off the ball. He's a 3-and-D player playing like Bruce Bowen. Shout out to my man CK2K. Then Julius Randle struggles this year. Then RJ Barrett finally has an opportunity with the ball in his hands. He's inefficient. I understand he doesn't have the bigs to bag, but there was an adjustment period of playing with the ball again. So he's kind of had to change his style of play every year he's been with the New York Knicks. He averaged 20 points per game. He's an insane mentality. He's a damn good defensive player, at least in my opinion, when he has been healthy out there on the floor. Needs to become more efficient, but to give up on someone who's 22 years old right now, I think would just be absolutely disgusting. Or maybe not giving up on, but giving up a huge part of your future for Donovan Mitchell, who I think's better than RJ right now, but I don't think anyone's looking at the full picture. Donovan Mitchell comes over here. How much are we improving? Do we even get out of the first round? Do we just make it to the second round? There's no true upside to this team, if you know what I mean. But just reading this here, a few notes on the Knicks and Donovan Mitchell. The Knicks are among several teams with interest in trading for Mitchell. The Cavs touched base with Utah about a Mitchell trade in recent days. Per SNY sources, Cleveland's level of interest in Mitchell's unknown, but the Cavs have the young players and picks to put it together. The Wizards and Hornets are among the other teams interested in Mitchell. From a Knicks perspective, the club can offer the strongest package for Mitchell. Utah knows this and the Knicks know it. So this trade is essentially the Knicks trade to lose. New York is among the teams who have been in touch with Utah recently. The Jazz continue to have strong interest in Knicks wing RJ Barrett. Evan Fournier's name has also come up in discussions. The Jazz are seeking multiple first-round picks. Utah would win at least one of the trio of Obi Toppin, Quinn Grimes, and Emmanuel quickly in a trade if Barrett is included. Per sources, where do the Knicks stand on including Barrett in the deal? Last month, SNY reported that people in the touch with the Knicks early in free agency and period were under the impression that the club had no interest in trading him. That stance has shifted. Some New York decision makers are open to including Barrett in a trade for Mitchell, sources say. It's worth pointing out here that there's several voices of influence in the organization, so it makes sense there will be different opinions. I need Leon Rose to put a foot down. Honestly, it's regardless of how the negotiations play out, the Mitchell situation seems too good for New York to pass up on. Some with the Knicks see the Mitchell acquisition as a strong pathway to another star. So if this does happen and we give up RJ, which I don't want to do, yeah, you would have to get another star ASAP. You really would, because that would just be pure mediocrity. Adding another star to a core that includes Mitchell and Jalen Brunson would make New York a solid contender. If the Knicks don't trade for Mitchell, what's the next opportunity to add a young all-star to the roster? I guess that's a risk there. You don't want to give up on this opportunity here, but I feel like you have to look at the full picture. Yeah, your team looks better on paper, or maybe it's more exciting, but you improve one round. Do you think that's really worth it? Especially if RJ Barrett ends up flourishing and the Utah Jazz rebuild goes completely well, and RJ ends up being a key piece over there, and we just flame out in the second round. Let me know down below your thoughts. Peace out, y'all.